time I use a roller, even if it's brand new, I spin it. The reason why is because it works better after you do this. Trust me when I tell you.
The reason you want to do this is because it makes the pile, the nap, the fuzzy, it makes it pliable. Secondly, it fills the fibers with liquid. And when you spin it, it gets rid of the excess water. And so the result is that you don't have a dripping roller, but you have a roller, the fibers of which are sufficiently saturated so that they don't draw the liquid from your paint or your primer. And what is the result? You have a universal application of the paint or primer on your wall where you need it. Instead of the roller drawing the liquid of your paint or primer, you have your wall instead drawing the liquid universally from the left side to the right side, no matter where you begin. If you start with a dry roller, dipping it into the paint or the primer, well, that paint or primer has to absorb into your roller, and then it can act on your wall. So when you start on the left side with a dry roller, your roller absorbs the moisture, takes away from the wall, so you begin the wall on your left side, and then in the end, you look at the left side and the right side from a distance, and you see shadows on your left side. And why is that? The answer is because you used a different roller on the right side. If your roller is dry on the left and it's saturated in the middle and on the right, you know that you're going to get a different look on the right than on the left, right? No pun intended. Do this and you'll love me.
It's a little difficult when you're working it alone. But you know what? I'm going to tell you guys something. When you work alone, you get a better job. Get a helper, and you'll start to get people who take cigarette breaks and who got to call their wives and they got to do this and that. But when people work for themselves, all of a sudden they're on the cell phone less, etc., etc., etc. And you good folks know what I'm talking about. Now, look at your roller now. Okay? This is not wet. It's damp. It's damp. And that's what you want. You see, now when you introduce the paint, it's going to integrate with these fibers universally throughout the whole wall, throughout the whole paint job. You see, if you just wet it when it's dry with paint, well, now the paint seeps into the roots of these fibers, and then you're working the paint into the roller, and the first couple of feet of the wall, I'm telling you right now, they're going to look different than the rest of your wall. Do this. You'll be happy that I shared this little words of wisdom with you. Just try it and let me know what you think. Okay, we're sizing the wall. 1 part of this, 3 parts water. Yes, that's what I said. You prepare your wall underneath it. With this, it seals drywall. It seals fresh compound. Yes, please understand that I'm using this to size my walls. It seals the substrate. 99% of your walls need to be sized. Some guys would say 100%. This is a fresh skin coat. I just put 2 coats on, and then I polished it with a 3rd application here and there. You don't load the roller up too much. Now I'm using a good roller. This roller is about $8. Now if I start too low, I might soak my paper, so I'm just starting here. Now here's the, you see that puddle there? You see that? You see that? That's what you want. See that puddle? way you don't get any splashes, any surprises. And that's how you do it. So I advise you to roll one way. One way.
Let's recap the lesson here. This is water thin. You want to roll upward so that that thin material doesn't splash to the ground if you roll it downward.
You don't want to load it up too much. You don't want any pooling of material underneath your roller. You want it above it. Make sure you got the excess off. See that pooling there? See that? That's what you want. And you want to roll it upward. So at the top, you take your brush, you go up there and you just paint it. Fortunately for me, these walls are getting painted on the adjacent walls to this wallpaper wall. And so I can go right up against it. A little time saver. So this wall and that wall will get wallpaper. The window wall and the bathroom wall will get painted. You like my ceiling? So do I. So now that wall is finished, it's ready to wallpaper. As it dries with my sizing, I'm putting a polish coat on it. All that means is I'm going around and filling in any little divots. You see this right here? You see that? I'm getting rid of that. I'm looking around as close to the wall as your camera or your screen is to the wall itself. And I'm seeing things like this. And you just fill them in and literally it dries within minutes. In fact, you don't have to wait till it dries before you put your sizing on. You put it right over something as damp as that, and they dry together. So we're doing 2 accent walls today. Same wallpaper. That wall and the one behind me. Now watch this. If I go along the whole wall, look what happens. And I did this before the camera started. Watch this. I fall 1.5 inches away.
Wouldn't it have been nice if the wallpaper took me right to the edge, right? That would be a miracle, so to speak. And it almost never happens. And that's why you want to bring your wallpaper, ideally, from the left edge to the right edge. But since that doesn't happen, except when you order a mural, giving exactly the number of inches of your wall, does that happen? But here, we start in the middle. You start in the middle and you determine how much wallpaper is left, like you see in the screen there, on the left and on the right. And when you start in the middle, you'll always have the same amount of wallpaper on the far left and on the far right. It will be an equal amount of space when you begin in the middle. This is how floors are laid out, tiles on walls are laid out, etc. You don't usually, in tiles it's a little different because it depends on the layout of the room and what looks best. But on a wall, the consideration is, since anybody looking at a wall with wallpaper is going to be able to readily determine, as he or she looks at the wall, if it's symmetrical. When you walk into a long hallway that has rooms going this way and that way, you can get away without doing this on a floor with tiles. But on a wall, when the viewer is looking at the wall, left, right, top, and bottom, all at the same time, you want perfect symmetry, and therefore you have to start in the middle in order to have the same amount of wallpaper on the left side, the last piece on the left, and the last piece on the right. And so it becomes easy. Make your mark in the center of the wall, and then start from there. Those who follow my channel will know why I painted this wall dark. Well, the wallpaper is dark, and you want to have a color especially with dark wallpaper, that matches the wallpaper. The color, at least under the seams, should be the same general color of the wallpaper. Some veterans will say, oh, no. Excuse me, this is the way we do it. Yes, this is the way we do it. And I urge everybody watching this channel, if you have dark colors like red, maroon, black,
I'm using
do this and you won't regret
excuse me. So I have my trestle table set up, and I'll be taking 9 foot 8 inches of this paper and putting it on the wall. I'm using my excuse me, my honeybee. These are out of manufacturing now, so if anything goes wrong with it, it's on me.
If any of you good viewers have a machine like this, but your wall covering calls for paste the wall, well, you can always drag this wallpaper through this machine, adding water to it. You don't always have to use paste with this machine.
But anyway, I load my glue up in the reservoir, and these brackets prevent the paper, when it's idle, from dipping too far into the glue. And it's pretty simple. The initial couple of feet, you might have sketchy paste application because you're maneuvering it through the belt, etc. And so now, this part should have no glue on it. This is going to touch your design, your pattern. And it's just there to make the paper transition upside down onto your table, like so. Okay. Now let's check our paste application. Is it even? Yeah, I'm missing some paste there. So every paste machine needs to be adjusted before you get into it. And I suggest that you have a bucket on the side with a brush so that you could brush the paste into those areas on the initial sheet where it's lacking. As I pull my paper out of the pasting machine, I flap over a short amount for the top and the larger amount for the bottom. And you can see these machines have a place for your knife just to go in there. It's steel, and you just guide your knife right along that so you get a nice straight cut. The benefit of this is, of course, time, saving time. When you've folded the wall covering over, it's good to push certain types of wallpaper together. Commercial vinyl exceptionally, meaning that that's when you would push the sides together. I'm just wiping it off because it's better to get paste off of the shell when the paste is very wet rather than when it's starting to set up. Many of you who watch my channel are pros. Many of these tips are a waste of your time. I understand that. But please understand, I get a lot of negative comments from would-be pros. I got enough good comments too to keep it going. But a lot of negative comments about the time I take explaining things. Well, go to another channel if that's your attitude, because I have people all over the country sending me pictures, and I'm telling you the truth, of work they've done based on my videos. Okay? What I was about to say before I got into that is don't crease these, okay? You never want to make that completely bent, okay? So Same thing here. So if you have a helper, you're like, okay, where's the beginning? What's the top? What's the bottom? You want to have the bottom piece, the longer overlap, okay, instead of the top one. That's generally the rule, and it's a good way of communicating to your helper without saying words. Hey, this is the top, you know. Okay, let's get this on the wall, see how we do. As paper hangers, naturally, we tend to be perfectionists, those of us who do this for a living. We love what we do. Why? Because it looks perfect after we're done. Really, I mean, that's, you ask any paper hanger, why do you love paper hanging? And they'll tell you something to the effect that, look at what you create. I mean, look at this scene. Isn't that gorgeous? On the other hand, when a paper hanger is thrown a curveball with an imperfect situation, a manufacturing defect, can you see it? You could wind up beating yourself up. We have a perfect match here, right? After working that in, that'll be a perfect match. I mean, that's perfection. But 5 inches, 10 inches, 10, 25 inches, we have this ridiculous mismatch. But if you go up the pattern, it begins to rematch and revert back to perfection. So what do? The first thing is, the first part of the problem with this is the stress that you feel thinking it's your fault. This is where you, as the new pro, you stop and you say, ma'am, sir, please come in here. This is beyond my control. I'm going to try to hide this at the top or at the bottom over there, but I cannot make your imperfect wallpaper perfect. And then they don't believe you. You better be able to prove it. And this is how you prove it. Sir, you see how it's perfect here? It's perfect right here. But then just an inch and a half from here, it's imperfect. There's nothing going on in here. I didn't do anything to make this happen. Because a good customer who's done his homework will say, well, maybe you put torque on it and you've got it out of whack. That's a good retort. But your answer has to be, do you see any torque between that which is perfect and that which is not? Do you see any torque in this 1 inch here? And so you demonstrate by doing that the pattern is off. The pattern's off. Now, let's first assume that all of my pattern numbers are the same from each roll. Okay? Because that could play its hand into this mismatch. But assuming that all your rolls have the same number, this is not your fault. So I get customers, and I know you get them too. They want the exact amount of rolls that they need. Oh, it says it covers 65 square feet. This should be enough. I love getting a call from a customer. Hi, Spencer, how are you? I love your videos, blah, blah, blah. Need you to come and hang my paper. I got the paper ready, don't worry about it. Okay, what is it? It's a wall. Oh, okay. You got 2 rolls, right? Yeah, how'd you know? Yeah.
because you and everybody else make the same mistake, okay? A wall is, generally speaking, minimally 3, but usually 4 full rolls of common wallpaper. But that's not the only problem that you face when you're ordering paper. If you're doing a large job, you must assume that there's problems with the product. You want to order another roll if you're doing a large job, especially if the stuff is coming from the UK. Take a look at this. So I start hanging my pattern. I get down 3/4 of the way. Now I didn't see this. I must have seen it on an angle, and I thought it was just wet. This is a void of color. This has to come off. This is complete, it's a defect. So the problem is that this is 1/3 of a full roll of wallpaper, this sheet, okay? Now, can you splice that? Would you want to splice this wallpaper almost in the middle of the wall, right within 15 feet of eye level? Of course not. This is garbage. This is coming down. So if your customer demands that it takes 7 sheets, these rolls will give you 7 sheets. First of all, they assume that you're Superman and that you're going to be able to make no mistakes whatsoever. Number 2, they don't account for this. So you keep that in mind as the hanger. So I finally have a situation to show you the importance of having a laser level. Now this laser level is one of the more expensive levels. You'll get this for about $600. Okay, it's a 300-foot GLL3. So my laser goes across the room. So that I know that the flower near my finger is going to be at the same height as the flowers over here. You see that? So you want the laser to tell you that the pattern over here is level with the pattern over here.